Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
You're really going to enjoy this episode with the Impliers. I was joined by Dan Hartman and Charles Ingram. And let me tell you, their music put a smile to my face. Their videos are really something to behold. It's eclectic, it's experimental, it's really creative. Hey, let's listen to their first song, Stigma. I tell you, I am so excited about my guests today. I listen to their music on my drives to and from work, and all I can tell you is it put a smile on my face, and it made me happy. and everything was just so different. And I was talking to my daughter, and I said, "Yeah, I'm actually watching it while I'm driving." She goes, "Not when you're driving." Yeah, well, I'm at the light. I'm looking at the videos. But anyway, I want to welcome Dan Hartman and Charles Ingram of the Impliers to the Long Island Sound podcast. Guys, welcome. So great to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
So I was reading up on your bio, and I just love to give you my first impressions. What I love about your music is also the visual aspects. Dan, I think you do a lot of the scripting of the videos. They really tie together great, and it really just artistically was very freeing to watch your stuff. It was just so, I don't know, I can't even put words to it. It's just, everything was different, and had a great sense of art to it. So that's a statement. So let me ask you, how did you guys started? Let's reel it back a bit. You guys started a while ago as far as knowing each other. How did that relationship begin, and then how did you regroup to become the Impliers?
And how
Dan?
will it end?
And how will it end? Yeah, if you can look into the future, that'd be really cool.
Charles will die first. That's
I will be in the hospital bed. Dan will be holding my hand and telling me that I should have done better.
and he's gonna
while my heart stops beating.
He's gonna reveal something bad that he did that he's been holding his. Okay, so you asked the serious question, and then Charles took it to a different place. So, how did our relationship start? It was I grew up in Connecticut, not far from where you're at, and then when I was about 12, my dad took a job in North Carolina.
Okay.
And when I moved down there, I had gotten into playing guitar, so I think naturally, I didn't really know a lot of the kids down there, but I just met some other musicians and was playing in a little punk band or something like that. And I think we were playing birthday parties, and then something happened, and one guy had to leave, and somebody was like, "I know this other guy." We're in junior high or something like that. And this other guy comes in and joins the band, and then he kind of was really tapped into the local scene where we were literally no kidding, birthday parties. But this guy was knew everybody that was playing the house shows and the skate parks and stuff like that.
Right.
And he brought me over to this guy had his license before I did. He brought me over to this house in a suburban neighborhood in an attic where there was some kids playing some punk metal music, and went up there, and Charles was playing the drums extremely fast. It's weird because Charles, you've probably noticed already just meeting him for 5 minutes, he's really slow.
Yeah.
And his motions are slow, so when he talks and when he moves, but he was playing drums faster than anybody I'd ever seen. And I was like, what the hell was that? But I don't know what happened, but that week or the week later, me and that guy who went over to his house, we were like, you know what, let's leave this other band that we're in. And we started a band with Charles and somebody else from his school. We were a little metal band. I think we were all 15. The couple kids were 16. Just knowing that they had their license, they had to have been 16. That's kind of how it started.
Nice. So Charles, you originally from North Carolina, then, I would assume?
Yeah, born and raised in little podunk, little tiny towns, and then moved to Rocky Mount, which is the home of Hardee's. But it's a little town, and then later I moved to Asheville, which is in the western part, the mountain town. And I've been here about 20 years.
Dan, are you in Colorado?
Denver, yes.
Nice. So how do you guys do this, being separate?
Well, when we were real young playing music, you had to be in a room together, right? And with guitars like you have behind you, or drums, or
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we learned early on was, I think we bought a 4-track and tried to figure out recording. And I know Charles' mom, who was a piano teacher, had a keyboard that you could sequence and loop on. And so I think Charles really started learning how to do that, which when I would go to his house, I would figure out how to do that. But then my brother and neighbor got into, they weren't as musical, but they were really into the technical side and the recording. So they got into like multi-tracking just in the around the time that like digital recorders were coming out, like, and it was you get a lot more tracks and things were getting a lot more affordable and portable. So I think them being around us, they would always record us because they were always looking for people to record, so we would get free recordings, and just learned a lot about recording from them. And I think over a period of time, like Charles had his own like 24 track, and then me and my roommate, when I had moved away, we had gotten the same one. And over this like period of a decade, we each built up our own
catalog.
Yeah, like, and
library.
Just learning
Right, okay.
how to like record though, right? And like really learning production and kind of the whole thing. So I think we became less like guitarists and drummers and like writers back then, and a lot more like producers. But over that period of time, I started really investing in, you know, my studio to get to a certain way. And like, you know, back then you would have to send files back and forth, but now it's like you can just get your shit on the cloud, like, right? Like if you're recording stuff on your Mac and you got a good enough studio, I can click a button and it can be in his house right then and there. So about, I think 5 years ago, it was like, all right, Charles, we got to get you into the new age. Charles will tell you he's not a computer guy, but like as I upgraded a Mac, he picked up mine, and we just made sure that we had identical capabilities. So then that way it would be the same as like back in the day when we could just pick up one another's recordings. So it's kind of you know, a much different writing process. But, you know, the cool thing is, for all this time, we've known one another's libraries and our styles and what we each bring to the table. And then we just try to, you know, go outside of the comfort zone. But it's all of our, you know, that's where all of our money kind of goes into, is into these studios that we have.
Well, I tell you, you guys are guys after my own heart, because I'm a techie guy, and I love kind of jumping into new things and discovering, you know, how it works. And Charles, I know you do a lot with like layering harmonies and that sort of thing. So obviously you've got an artist and a musician's ear in approaching it, but it kind of frees you up in the embracing of the technology to knock down the guardrails and go into a lot of different directions. That was like my first impression about, you know, I went on, you suggest, I went right on your Instagram and I went, wow, oh, what's this? What's this? You know, and to me, you look like video guys right off the bat. So I like the fact that you embrace that and you have your artistic influence in doing video, right? Yeah. Where you're directing your own stuff, right? That's my assumption. Where when I've seen other bands' videos, it's you know it's the third party, you know.
Yeah.
And some guys and gals are like really. Yeah, you do your own.
We would absolutely never ever have someone else be like, you guys, I see you guys doing, like, how about you on a skateboard and then you come in, you know, like, no way. There's not going to be any third party involved with any ideas. That's final.
You can never say never, but yeah, probably. I think that's probably true, because one of the things about us is almost as long as we've been doing music have we been doing video. So like,
cool.
You know, like when we moved down to North Carolina, like, you know, we didn't have like my family didn't have a lot of money, and when my dad moved to North Carolina, it was for a better job. And I think that Christmas we got like a camcorder, and I used to steal my grandpa's like big VHS one before and film things, but I immediately started figuring out on like this little digital camera, like, I don't know why, but I started figuring out how to do little like in-camera tricks, you know, like I don't know where it came from, but we would film just us doing dumb stuff around the city. Like there's some videos of like me calling the local I don't remember what, like, you know, like the local wrestler would be on TV talking, and we would just videotape me calling him and like you know, trying to start a war.
It was a public access channel, and
yeah,
and there was this guy, there was this wrestler named Viper, And
Okay.
when you have the public access guy, everyone, I don't know why they ever even did this, but every single person that called in would just start cussing and saying terrible things immediately. And he would hang up and be like, we don't need that. We don't need that. And then Dan would call in as Redbird, say, this is Redbird, and I challenge you to a match or whatever. And that was when Viper was able to sit back because he knew that Redbird wasn't going to say the F word and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But he would always push.
Thing.
He would always push it just a little too much for Viper. And the only one that I remember, and I used to have this on video, but once I think this was the last one. Viper's like talking trash back and forth to Redbird, and then Redbird says, which is Dan, I got scars as big as jars of mayonnaise. And Viper, they hung up, and Viper was just like, that's the end of Redbird, like no more Redbird.
Well, like we would just film all this like random stuff, and then ultimately I think we started matching a lot of these things to music. Like you could take like your video and then your music and then put it into a VCR and then make a tape.
Right.
And so we started doing a lot of stuff like that. Charles got a camera, and it's like now when you look at like TikTok or like what was Vine or whatever, our old stuff kind of looked like that. So, but like just trying to figure out like how to do things on our own through video and music have always kind of existed, and it's funny, like, yeah, I guess I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm reading Rick Ruben's book.
Yeah. Excellent book.
Yeah. So my daughter gave it to me. She goes, Dad, you got to read this book. I'm halfway through it. And what I'm getting out of the first part of the book is, and what I recognize in you guys is this ability to play and have that enjoyment. And then what you're doing is you're really putting that out into the world, where it brought a smile and a sense of humor to me just listening and watching, what you're doing. By the way, I don't know if you notice, I'm wearing blue on purpose because I saw your videos.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It's anything to promote the brand is what I want to do.
Nice.
Hey, let's do this, guys. Let's just take a quick break. And man, I got a shitload of questions for you.
Yeah.
So, hey, everybody stick with us. We're with the Impliers, and we'll be right back.
Are you ready for the ultimate podcasting adventure? The Long Island Sound podcast offers you not one, but 2 ways to engage with our captivating content. Tune in to our audio podcast on your favorite platform and let your imagination paint vivid pictures of Long Island stories. Or if you're craving a visual feast, catch our video podcast on Spotify and on the Long Island Sound YouTube channel. Double the options, double the excitement.
Guys, I want to talk about your influences. And during the break, I wrote down 3 artists that I think fall into my impressions of the genre that you play. So, Charles, I'm going to throw it to you. Give me your top 3 influences in music.
Since you're from New York, maybe you'll know these bands because these are New York bands. At least for me. Me and him will probably have different influences.
All right.
Probably number 1, Sonic Youth was huge for me. As a teenage punk rocker, that wasn't what people listened to, but I liked them on my own and forced everyone else around me to listen to them also. And then number 2 would be the Swans. I think they're one of the greatest bands to ever exist. Or Michael Gira is a genius. And the third one, I listen to a lot of stuff that no one else really likes or listens to. There was a band called Hood, Hood, that I think was extremely influential on the way that I made music. So they were really lo-fi, but like early 90s lo-fi, which meant just 4-track recording, but it had this mysterious, you couldn't really understand what was happening in the music. and I really enjoyed that.
All right.
Yeah, that's 3.
You didn't get any of mine, so you're not going to win the prize.
Oh man.
But all right, Dan, let's see if you can do it. And I gotta say there might be a generational divide in my confusion.
There's this guy named Cornelius. He
Tell me he's a guy from the neighborhood, because I never would have got him.
Cornelius is a Japanese gentleman. They used to call him like the Japanese Beck. But his first record, he was like really into sampling. But one thing that he did that inspired me quite a bit is that his songs were really bright and upbeat. And he knew how to use like small, sounds and samples. But his like approach to like layering vocals was like compared to Beach Boys and whatnot. And to me, that was always really, really interesting. Number 2 is the guitar player from Meshuggah, a metal band. So he had an album that he came out with underneath Special Defects, but it's all using really off rhythms, right? Interesting time signatures. But on that album, there was a drummer from a band called Kaipa, Morgan Argan, and the keyboardist from them, and they're a jazz band essentially. And so that with like these like crazy intense metal guitars on top of it probably influenced a lot of how I see and hear things. And that sent me down, I think, a jazz and like R&B path. And in the city that we came from, Rocky Mount, very big jazz town. I think Thelonious Monk was from there or something, or lived there or something like that. So there was always really good jazz stations. So when I had my first car, didn't have a tape player, a CD player, or whatever in it at that time, like the local jazz stations were there. So I think that also got me really involved in that city, got me really into hip hop. So I think A Tribe Called Quest is probably another one, which that kind of takes me down like the alternative R&B, dream pop, hip hop, which it's just really jazz, in a lot of ways. So
nice.
Yeah, I don't think we got any of your 3 though, but
now you know what it is. When I first started listening to your music, I was happy, right? Then I picked 3 people that I said, "Oh yeah, they gotta love these guys." Now I'm very sad. Okay, so you're taking me on a bit of a roller coaster ride, and now I'm going to do my review.
What those are?
You get all right, kid. All right, Charles. Guess.
The Velvet Underground?
Nope. I know I'm old, but I'm not that old.
You too.
No. Jesus.
Talking Heads.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Okay. He's going in the post punk direction.
No way. Talking Heads. Zappa. Nice. And then Foo Fighters. We've heard Foo Fighters before, just because the Foo Fighters seem to have a sense of humor, even though when you listen to some of their songs, you're like, damn, that's serious. Why are you having so much fun?
So David Byrne and Talking Heads came right to my mind from watching just your videos.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially, and who's doing the thing? Was it you, Charles, by the mirror with your hand, like throwing your hands out?
Oh, yeah.
That was cool. I could watch that like for hours, I think.
My mother is the biggest David Byrne fan ever. So like I grew up like with, like my first musical memory was hearing the song And She Was on the radio in the back of my parents' car, which, Talking Heads were huge, right, in the 80s, and Psycho Killer and all that stuff. But my mom has always been huge into everything that he's done. But it's funny because my mom was like, Charles, you are inspired by Talking Heads. And Charles is like, I never even heard of them until I was 20, which is weird. Right. Like, I don't know if his house was like.
My house was classical music. There was my parents weren't cool like your parents were cool. And the first time that I ever heard that was Mike Watts, a very good friend of ours, who was introduced me to like Steely Dan and jazz and all of this kind of stuff. He was a wild man, but I would used to dance around his house, and he would always say, "You're like David Byrne. You're dancing like David Byrne." And I didn't know who he was talking about. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "From the Talking Heads." And I'm like, "Oh, like the '80s band?" All I could think of was the "And you might find yourself that song, the Days Go By
Right, right.
song. That's the only
Yep.
Talking Heads that I knew. So I didn't know that I was copying David Byrne before I had ever seen or heard him, but
Yeah.
evidently I was.
Yeah, and that whole band, they were all art students and they all met in college. And that was
Well,
the
that's
feel
Yeah.
What's that?
I was just gonna say, very flattering, reference. Thank you.
Yeah, so that begs the question, what did you guys study in school? And has that what you studied in school? I assume you went to some school sometime. North Carolina, probably through the 6th grade, right, Charles?
Yeah,
sorry.
about through the 6th grade. Yeah, I didn't do too good in school, in my schooling.
Me neither.
I didn't. I got my GED though.
All right.
My mom always
Excellent.
brings that up.
So
Yeah,
what
Get
would
his GED.
so
But
what
no,
would you say?
yeah, no degree or anything.
Yeah, neither me. So what would you say? It's a hard question, but is there anything from school that influenced your music early?
I can say absolutely, as in the Rocky Mount is it's a compared to a lot of cities, and you see a lot of this in the South. It's really diverse, and so the white men like us are actually a minority in that city. So there was a lot of
Okay.
hip hop in those schools, and one thing that was awesome in those schools is how people learned how to use the desks to play drum beats on. And so as somebody who was like
Yeah, that's
trying
true.
to like I knew how to play the guitar, and usually it was hard to find a bass player or hard to find a drummer, because a drummer usually has to be somebody with a lot of, their parents are rich or something. But Charles had a really
Yeah,
shitty
sure.
drum set, but it wasn't at my house. So like when both of us needed a drummer and I kind of would do that, there's like a lot of practice that you can do on your desk. But I would hear people do some of the best, like Wu-Tang was getting really big during that time, so a lot of people would play the beat for Triumph on the desk. And I still like practice the drums in my head like on a desk from like just being in that era where like hip hop was in like such a great, boom bap type of beats or whatever, and very rhythmical cohort of folks in our school.
Neat.
Yeah, there was
That's neat.
always there was a mutual friend of ours. His name's Seth. People always were doing beats on surfaces, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And even when I was at church, like people would be doing like little quiet beats while the sermon's going on. And I was always thinking like, how do you do that kind of beat? And I was
Yeah.
just talking about the table beat, not
Right.
like on drums. And then once I saw someone playing the drums, I was like, that's what I'm doing. I need to be loud and take over. Like whoever is within 100 feet is going to hear this. And that's the drum. When I saw the drums live for the first time, like in person, is two good friends of ours, which I knew they meddled with music, but then once I saw them play guitar and drums together, I was like, oh, I was probably 12 maybe, and I was like, that's it, I'm doing that. So ever since that day, now here we are.
Nice. Hey, so tell me about the song our audience heard, Stigma. When was that developed? Who did the muse strike? And, how did you pull it together, I guess? I'm curious.
It's really interesting in that song, it was January 2020. So that
okay.
song, I just started off with like I had just a super simple shuffle beat with a bass line that went back and forth. And so when Charles and I were like, all right, let's figure out, like we do this every year, and sometimes we do it like 5 times a year, like let's throw all the songs that we think we want to like put in a collection, like 40 of them, and then start narrowing them down. For whatever reason, I had uploaded that to the SoundCloud, and Charles was like, that's a good one. And so like when I was kind of just having that song in the back of my mind, it's interesting how the subconscious will keep working on things, and
Sure.
then you'll just get an idea, right? And I think, Rick Rubin might talk about that in his book a little bit. But I remember like I added some jazz chords to it back and forth, and then I heard a melody when I was driving home from the supermarket, and then I just sent that over. It was like with like a baby voice effect on it.
Okay.
And I sent it over to Charles on a Friday night, and I swear sometimes it takes him 4 months to send me something back, but he sent me something back in like 40 minutes.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was like completely broken. Like he had taken just like the end of the song and was just like, screw all this other stuff that you did. I'm just going to make like a new song at the end of it. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because then I heard a whole nother song off of what he did. And then that song ended up becoming Ego Death. And then like it just kind of sat there for a little while. So maybe he could tell you about his part. And then later on that year, 2020 was kind of weird or whatever. Later on that year, just kind of layered it up, and added some of the synths that kind of tie it together a little bit more and kind of put together the story and the melody and whatnot. But yeah, it's just this thing that we do where it's like if you start with something simple, you send it to the other person that basically is like, oh yeah, well, F what you did. Here, I'm going to do this other thing that's like hopefully going to complement it, but hopefully like make you think something different. And we didn't think it would be anything. That's why when we were releasing our singles last year, it's just kind of surprising to think that that's the one that everybody wanted to hear, because it's really simple compared to some of the other things that came out. But,
So Charles, is that true? Is that how you approached it when you returned it back to him in 40 minutes? Just chopped it and took it in a different direction?
My memory is so bad, you're better off asking other people than asking me. But I would say probably that is true. It is true what he said. Like the way that we'll work is, so we'll make up a thing by ourselves, then send it off, and then the other one will take it. Like I'll make something, send it to Dan. He'll do something completely that I would never have thought of, and then that ignites more ideas from me. So it's just kind of feeding off of each other. And a lot of times, say like with this Millionaire Mermaid song, which was made a long time. I wrote pretty much the most of the thing with just guitars. It was only bass and guitars. And then he sent me a message. He's like, oh, I just broke this song down so hard, there are no guitars. And I was like,
he said it was blasphemy. He's like,
I said, why would you do that? It just made me just go, oh, disgusting. And then I listened to it and I was like, all right, this can work. I actually like it. And I think it's going to be much better than just some, 2000s indie guitar rock kind of thing. It updates it into a new era without diminishing the feeling that it had, like 15 years ago. So
I think one of the fun things about the process of that Millionaire Mermaid song was, as we've been putting together a lot of stuff for this next album that's coming out, that the Love at First Sight song is on. It's an album that's about love. And when we were putting, the next song together, it's like, I have this one that's almost done. And I was like, well, just send it to me. Like, it's like, we've made this thing a long time ago. He made it a long time ago. It's like a grand fairy tale. And we knew that it was going to be on one of these other albums. And we're like, why don't we just put this one out? And so his version that he sent was something that he worked on a couple years ago. And I was like, let me just kind of like start redoing this in another session, because I think when he did it, it was like really guitar centric. It's like, we probably need to redo the drums and bass. So I loaded it up and I was like, let me just start it from like the drums and the bass and just really simplify those. And then when I pulled it back to where it was just the bass line and the drums and the vocals, I learned that it was a complete song just with just the melodies that he had written to sing.
Oh, Okay.
Right. So then I was like, why would we overload it with like adding so many other things? Let me take some of the notes that these guitars were doing and maybe use that on some type of chord that kind of fills in that space. And then once I did that, I was like, it's the greatest quote. It's like, perfection is when you can't take away anything else. Right? Because like back in the day when we had these 24 tracks, it's like, I have 24 tracks to put on my music. I'm going to use all 24. So a lot of our old stuff is that way. But when I heard it like that, I was like, I have this thing. I'll send it to you. It doesn't have any guitars. He was pissed and I sent it. I was like, we could just make it a remix or something. And he was like, yeah, I think this will work. So...
Nice. You know what I'm hearing is you guys really have something special. I think what I'm hearing is you leave your egos, in another room, when you're collaborating on this. That doesn't always happen. I mean, I talk to many artists who I ask them, this question, whether, are you a sole practitioner or a collaborator? And like, oh, no, I pull it all together and then I bring people in. But you guys really approach it in a different way. And I keep on coming back to this thought about no guardrails, real freeing, and just kind of opens up the world. I think it opens up your audience too, to do that. But I want to take a twist. And then I do want to get into Millionaire Mermaid and have our audience hear that. But I guess where I'm going, I forgot even where the hell I was going with this.
Ego.
So ego's out the door. You're pretty free on how you do it. This is my question. So you've done a lot through your career separately, kind of like these closet projects, fun for friends type of things with movies and pranks and that sort of thing. How do you take what you do now and bring it from the studio? And maybe you don't do it live. Are you like Steely Dan? You just do great studio work, but very rarely go out. Do you take it out and do it live at all, or no?
No, I think the fun thing about that is for us, for a very long period of time, we were isolated. We didn't share anything with really anybody, right? And like that is not because we wanted to keep it a secret. It's because we made it because we just enjoyed doing it. So we ended up with these hundreds of partial songs because it's like you go into your studio, you get into something that you really like, you start working on it, and then like you spend a day on it. But then the next day, it's your next day in the studio. Okay, cool. What can I start doing? And, the video stuff too. It's like there's a whole bunch of like sketches that never really went anywhere that were like funny, but they didn't really have a point. And I think over a period of time, when you hone in those skills, you kind of learn how to do a different type of storytelling with video, that's like can take over somebody's mind a little bit. And then I think with the music, for us, it was never about that. So like we really had to say like, we need to learn how to actually finish stuff, right? Like the hardest thing to do is start and finish, right? Like once you're in it, you can kind of get into flow. So I think for us right now, and I'm speaking, kind of for myself, that creating is what's fun. Like honestly, like if you watched that video for like Love at First Sight or whatever, I don't think I've watched it since it's been out, because you watch it a million times when you put it together. And same thing with this Millionaire Mermaid. It's like I haven't really listened to it much since we uploaded it, but really believe in it by the time it gets to that point. But it's like, hey, what's next, And it's just, whatever we can kind of tap into. So, but we haven't really seen as much of a... if you're going to go like spend all the time to do some of the complex music live or whatever and practice for that type of stuff, you got to hope that like when you go show up somewhere that somebody wants to see you. And we're still just kind of small. We don't really have like a Denver following or an Asheville following.
Right.
It's a little bit more global because it's been through like, the Spotify and the social reach. So if there ever is a demand, that's, much different. But like, yeah, we even applied to play at this. Denver has this thing happening this week with 200 bands. We applied, they didn't respond. So it's like, I don't think anybody,
I know. Yeah, what you get nowadays, it's okay. And I did this for 3 different guys who were going to play in New York City. And the first thing they asked, okay, give me their Spotify account, their Instagram account, because they're all looking at followers to see how many tickets they're going to sell. obviously, right? Is there a following?
Right.
So that's kind of interesting to one aspect. A lot of musicians who are really just depending upon music have to tour and have to do festivals to make ends meet or sell merch, because they're not making off their streaming. But if you're in that place where you can be in that creative mode and kind of work it, that's heaven. That's heaven. The other aspect too is like an engineer working on a project. And I don't mean to sound an engineer, any engineer. You always got to get engineers to kind of say, all right, you're going to be done by this time, or I need a complete or they'll be tweaking it forever,
Yeah. Well, we do everything. You were talking about we do our own videos, like literally from writing, performing, mixing, everything, right? Like we kind of handle all that piece. And the other thing is like, for us, it's never going to be about like it's almost impossible to, make a living off of this stuff, right? Unless you got somebody that's kind of pumping you out there, like a label or something like that. And it's like, well, why would we want to give up the thing that we have where it's like we get to just do whatever we want? There's no time frame and that type of stuff. So it's like we're not closed off to those types of things. But the cool thing is when you are just doing something because you actually enjoy it, it does like come out as like the purest expression. And I think it's kind of cool to not have some of those other things. But yeah, it's a total money suck, right? But like that's like people spend money on, hey, I'm gonna go put $700 to my car and insurance payment a month, and it's like, or I'll just drive this old shitty car and pump that money into music that people might like or have fun watching it while they're driving, evidently.
Right, and that stuff's going to live on too. That's that aspect of it's really, once it's digital, it's eternal.
Right.
But you've also got accolades through social media. So tell me a little bit about that, about the video projects that got you some recognition.
The award.
With the award.
The award.
We're in a,
yeah,
I
maybe
won
I'll
a
talk
major
about
award. We got
I'll talk a little bit.
a leg lamp.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just,
Yeah,
just kidding.
Oh, with the mesh dot, with the fishnets.
Yeah, it's a major award.
Excellent.
That's my reference.
Yeah, Charles
to
can talk
anything.
about how we made that video because, like, yeah, I do a lot of like the filming and editing and that type of stuff, but we do a lot of the obviously that work together or whatever. But we taught ourselves this video stuff, but for a while at my job, I led the learning organization for like a customer experience for a big company, and I had a bunch of videographers on my team, and I never told any of them, really that like I was a video person, and it was good because, I wanted to let them be creative, but also you can, when you know what somebody's job is, like, how to guide them a little bit, but I never wanted to kind of overshadow that. But one of the things in the recruiting of that team and thinking about how we could build up pride was like, okay, there's these awards that are out there that you could apply for. And so there's a lot of different ones, but the one for one of the big ones for video is the Tele awards. And it's pretty cool, right? You just kind of submit your video. You don't have to do some big long application. It's just on the strength of your video.
Okay.
And so when we put together this infomercial, which was our very first thing that we ever released to the world, because we wrote a whole album and we didn't tell anybody about anything. And we were like, how are we going to go out there and convince people to do this? And the idea was like, let's put together like a straight up infomercial that has like a ghost music video for each of the songs. And then we'll kind of send this out there and publish it. And it will look like an infomercial for something that you can buy and whatever, right? Like you can always check that out. But I submitted it for that. I didn't think, we'd win a silver. Like even the team that I had at the company before, we never broke bronze or whatever. But yeah, like we're up there next to like PBS and like House of the Dragon for something that was made in this bedroom on this computer I'm on. But Charles, if you want to talk about like the video.
Yeah, so there was some idea. I think I was reading some book or something about some fiction book. I read fiction books, total waste of time. But there was something about ghost books. So there was an author that he somehow made reviews or whatever that made him look like he had been writing books for 20 years, but he hadn't.
Okay.
This was his first book. So he only wrote like the bare minimum to be like, this is a book that came out. It's no longer in print. You can't find it. But I have written, many, many books. And so I was thinking like, yeah, we could do like ghost videos. So all of the songs on the infomercial are real songs, but the amount of time and effort it takes to make it like an entire music video is a lot. So we were like, well, let's just make ghost videos. So people will so this infomercial, it's like those commercials in the 90s, like best hits of the 80s, and
Right.
and has the blue
from
screen,
Time Magazine. Yeah.
like order now, sorry, no CODs, that kind of thing. A touch of nostalgia there at the end, but that every song in the video we made its own, like there was its own story, an individual video for every song. And that was like, it was like a advertisement from 1994 for our album.
There's a way to get like a 2-minute like elevator pitch that was like, here is what we're about and what we sound like.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we really thought at that time, I think this is the first time we're actually telling people that those are ghost videos, that they don't exist.
It's all fake.
Yeah, there's one video that's real, but I think at the time it was really important to us. We put a lot of thought into the Cocoon album, and it really is about the music and the lyrics, and we didn't want the video to steal the meaning of the songs for people. We wanted them to kind of listen to it, right?
Yeah.
So there's an argument for that, where it's like, do you release your video and your song on the same day? And there's a really good argument that's like, you kind of want people to build a relationship with the song first, and then, come out with the video. So I think we're kind of playing around with that for this single that's coming out tonight.
Yeah. What's the first song on MTV? Video killed the radio star, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And what
no, it wasn't Lauper. It was somebody else.
It was the Buggles.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and so
very good
for when Dan messaged me about like, how about because I was thinking this thought before, because we did make a video for this song that's coming out tomorrow or in 3 hours and 10 minutes.
The countdown.
And I was kind of like, maybe we should put out the song and then a week or 2 weeks or whatever, put out the video to just kind of add on to the song. Think of Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller. Every time you hear that song, you think of him.
Yep.
Yeah, you think of the video. And so I know that we're way better than Michael Jackson and the Thriller video, but just to use him as an example, we didn't want to go that route. We'll release the video just a little bit later, so it won't be so attached to the song. So when you hear the song, you don't think of what the video is.
Right. And it comes back to, for me, I want a song to become part of my soundtrack as opposed to my movie track, right?
Yeah.
Because then you've cut into my imagination and told me what it should mean. And I would think you would want exactly where you're going. But it's really interesting in the, putting out EPs and stuff like that. I had a couple of guests, and they're really great guys. You should check them out. They're called the Como Brothers, COMO. And they religiously put out 2 songs a month, 2 new songs a month. And self-produced. The guy's wife, who was his fiance, does their videos on an iPhone. And they'll put the song out, put the video out, and then do the lyric video a week or 2 later to kind of, spoon feed, I guess, their fan base. And
nice.
Yeah, they're doing. They seem to be doing okay with it, particularly on YouTube, where promoting shorts. They're starting to pay people for that, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
But I gotta say this, having moved from on the Long Island Sound from an audio only podcast to a sometimes video podcast, man, can I appreciate the editing process, because it's arduous, especially for a guy who's really new at it. And then I ran into something I didn't expect was, okay, I've got somebody's MP3, but they don't have a video for the song. And do I just put up a stagnant image? People are generally listening even to video podcasts. Or do I interpret it with B-roll, which I did the first few episodes? And then again, am I robbing somebody? Probably not that deep, but a lot of time. I'm listening to every lyric. Okay, now I'm going to do my fade into this, fade into that. It's a different scene. And I can really appreciate the thought process that's put into, what you've done. And I'm anxious to look at this ghost video to see how it goes. Let's do this, because I feel it in my mind where we heard Stigma. Now tell me a little bit about, what is it? Millionaire, Mermaid. And then we're going to let the audience hear the song.
Well, there was a period in my life where I would literally not leave the recording room for days, except, of course, to go to the bathroom. But I was just glued to it because I had wanted a multi-track recorder my whole life, and I finally had it. And so I just cranked out whatever came to my mind. The story of Millionaire Mermaid was an open-ended question, and it was just a 1 minute little song, but I don't get it. I don't get why people like it, but everyone I know has been like, you need to make that a song. You need to make it an actual full song with a verse, chorus, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, fine, I'll do that. And then Dan took it and converted it from a guitar song to a synthesizer song.
That's the one he destroyed, right?
Yeah, he completely took it apart, transformed it like a transformer. He Optimus Primed it, and
nice.
But I think it turned out a little bit better than the original. So. As far as what it means and all of that is open to interpretation, but it's just a nice song to listen to.
And with that, let's take a listen to Millionaire Mermaid, as I get the marbles out of my mouth. Millionaire Mermaid. We'll be right back after the song. Check it out, everyone.
Washed away by a tsunami.
Yay! You guys got an opinion on AI and music?
Very, very deep, long conversation about AI with his
Okay.
mom, and and it went very well because me and his mom were saying AI is going to take over and kill us, and he was trying to convince us that it's not. And we've yet to see who's right and who's wrong with that one. But I can't think of the name of the. There's a YouTube channel that it has a 3 or 4 streaming. This started maybe a year ago, but 3 or 4 it has a jazz AI, black metal AI music.
Okay.
That never stops. It's always going, and like a funk hippie jam band AI.
Okay.
And it's really interesting to listen to because it really messes with your brain. It's not how music really works and how it's supposed to go. And I guess that it's learning constantly. But there was a song, this was maybe 4-5 years ago. They had a contest when AI was kind of new, and it was like which AI can make the best pop song. And Blood Tears or Blue Eyes and Bloody Tears, or Blue Jeans and Bloody Tears. And it's actually a really good song, but they still needed a human voice to sing the lyrics. So I was like, well, that's not really AI, but I'm sure it's gone a lot further now.
Well,
you can go on, Dan.
Well, the thing that I think about AI music, I have so many thoughts about it, but one of it is that like AI, it's still us, right? It's learning from humans and then it's kind of spitting something else back at it. And I just think it's like a fascinating shift, right? AI doesn't have a heart, right? It doesn't have a conscience or a soul. So it's like kind of literal in some things, but just thinking about being able to like provide a prompt that's like, give me some jazz music as in this style about this, about that, and being able to get something quite immediately back, I think is going to be really interesting for a couple reasons. One is it's going to, I think, challenge people, like, because it might spit something back at you, like Charles was saying, or it doesn't even sound like music, that kind of reshapes the direction that we go in. I imagine people had similar thoughts when they first heard a synthesizer. They're like, what the hell is that sound? It's supposed to be emulating, this sound, but it's doing something completely on its own. But as somebody who likes to work on film, there's only so many stock libraries that are out there that you can pull things down from. And that's why if you use, let's just say you're using something simple like iMovie and you use the stock sound effects or cinematic sounds that are in there, you're going to hear that on everybody's channel, right? Where now if you can pop in some prompts or whatever, right, and then you can have like a little bit more of a library, I think that's cool. But I think, just like anything else, it's going to challenge and send people off in a new direction, right? Because now if somebody has to spend 10 years to be a good jazz musician, and now because the AI knows all this historical stuff, and is able to kind of assemble something with like some keystrokes, well, if that takes that and makes it so much easier, now you got to go do something else. You got to do something that machine hasn't done, right? So I think it's any of these shifts that happen, if you don't embrace them, I mean, how many people do you know that don't have a computer or they're not using email, right? And how far are they behind right now, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so you just got to embrace it, and you got to figure out how to do it. What I get the most excited about, and I think about this when I look at what people are doing on TikTok, or now, the filters that people have on there, or when people are... There's a software now that kind of turns whatever you sing or hum or, clap into MIDI notes that can actually turn it into, like a song for you. And I think that's freaking awesome, because what we had to do took us, like when we make a song and it takes us a day to make it, it really took 25 years in a day, because you had to go learn how to do all this stuff, buy the instruments. And now the fact that some kid, like, I had songs in my head when I was like 6 years old, and it took me forever to figure out how to get them out. Now somebody can just do it. I think that's awesome. Because that's going to like open up so much more creativity. And then like, what's going to come next? Maybe music as itself changes. It doesn't have to be 4 or 5 people doing something. We've already seen EDM change it. And I just think I'm here for it.
Yeah, I see it as another tool, and I don't use it for music, but I tell you where it's helped me in putting together my programs. I'll say, I'll use a prompt that says, act as a professional copywriter, social media copywriter, and create a title based on this bio of the group I just interviewed as Steve from the Long Island Sound. And then it obviously gets to learn me through the prompts of who I am. And it spits out great titles. Okay, I got that title, which has to be search engine optimized. So I'm there. And then it knows without me asking, which is really weird. It throws in the description based on that title.
Well,
that saved a lot of time. Saved me a lot of time.
Just think about like, so we're, as a human, the first time you ever go to drive your car, how hard it is. You're like, oh my God, I have to hold the wheel. I have to shift. I have to look in this mirror. It's so hard. But now, after you've been doing it for a few years, you're texting while you're eating a burger, and not even your knee is holding the wheel, and you're not worried at all, right?
Right.
Because your subconscious is able to like take so many things and automate them underneath. Well, then now your mind is free to do so many other things, right? And that's when you get good at something, you build on top of that. So when you think about like what you're talking about, like the generative AI, where you can like feed something and it will do something for you. That's giving you an hour of your life back to now you don't have to worry about so much time on that title. Guess what you can spend your time doing now, right? Like when you think about, I think Einstein and Steve Jobs, where they were wearing the same thing every single day. One less decision, one less thing that you can automate into your day so your brain can focus on other things. And it's going to be a gigantic shift.
Yeah, I look at it the same way as in the 50s when new appliances came out, and how it's going to make your chores a lot easier to give you this extra time to do what you enjoy, and then you can also enjoy doing that as well. So I think it's pretty interesting world, and even I'm just telling you, in the past week, where I'd go to another AI program and throw my video interview in, it would chop it up to highlights and reels and different shapes. Now it does it in Riverside, because Riverside decided,
awesome.
I'm going to bring AI in, and it's going to be a benefit, so I don't have to jump to some other program. This happened just in 2 weeks, when I was like, oh, I just discovered something great. Oh, now it's in something I pay for every month anyway. So
Moore's
cool.
law, I think it talks about like how often the speed of technology or the capabilities of technology doubles. And just think about that leap that we just saw over the past year. Now just think about what's going to happen over the next couple. It's hard to even imagine.
Yeah, I have an interesting thing to say about like technology and whatnot. Well, it's not really about the technology, but when the telephone came out, a lot of people thought it was satanic or whatever. They were really afraid of it. And just an interesting fact for anyone listening to take home is that the word hello was not used until the telephone. And what Alexander Graham Bell, they all agreed that there needed to be something to say when you pick up this device and talk to someone, from miles away. And he personally hated hello because at the time hello meant it was an exclamation like, wow, or oh my God kind of thing. That's what hello meant before the telephone. He wanted it to be ahoy. So...
Can I say one thing about the phone and embracing technology? So this phone, it's an iPhone 14. Me and a friend, we were coming back from somewhere out in just as far as you could be, rural Colorado. And when we were driving back, we drove past a truck that had rolled like at least 5 times, and there was some
Okay.
people sitting bloodied on the side of the road. And as we were driving by, somebody said, "We're okay." The last car said they're gonna call the police from the next town, and we're like, "You're like 50 minutes from the closest town. There is no." So now you're talking 2 hours. This person doesn't know where they're at. There's probably something broken. Well, this phone has satellite calling in it, so I stopped and I was like, "Hold on." And next thing you know, we're texting 911 because they launched that technology on this, and there was somebody out there in no time. You know what I mean? And it's like, so there's always going to be people that are worried about that next layer of technology, but like at the same time, that's like why you have to have really good standards. And I think Bill Gates or somebody was just recently talking about this. It's like, look, when cars came out, like, yeah, people were worried about them, doing all these things, killing people, but that's why we painted lines on the road and we got speed limits, and we had different regulations and governors and things like that. This is no different. You got to figure out what are the parameters that we're going to operate in. But we can't fight it.
Agreed. So let me ask you this. So certainly what I recognize in the Impliers is the way you've embraced visual technologies and audio technologies and taken them in a lot of different directions. And it's really amazing to me to be free and creative with that. Where do you see yourselves going next with your art? Say this next year. I don't want to go too far in the future. I can't even predict, but where do you see yourselves going? Do you have goals on what you want to accomplish, or, what's really next for the Impliers? What's the next level, so to speak?
Well, we have just like our last album, we have the next album. It will be 2 albums, but instead of what we did last time, we just recorded all of them and released them all at once. This time we're just going to kind of drip release.
Spoon feed it out.
Yeah, not every single song that will be on the album, but like singles and stuff, just to keep people aren't waiting for 2 years for us to, come out with something, because who knows, the aliens may have taken over the earth in 2 years. So we're gonna.
They found, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to. Our method of releasing, our creation and releasing things is kind of like, let's make it, release it, kind of like I forget the name of that band that you were talking about. They
The
do
Como
like
Brothers.
2 songs a month. Yeah, something similar to that. Not really as restrictive with timelines. Of course, 2 songs a month would be awesome, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. But yeah, we're going to approach things in that kind of way. But it will still be in a comprehensive album that tells a story arc of an emotional journey that pretty much not everyone, but most people go through in their life and can hopefully identify with, and discussing things that people don't really talk about. And so, yeah, that's, if Dan wants to add something.
Yeah, I think so there are like part of us putting our stuff out, like in the beginning when we said we're going to make this first album and not even tell anybody and make it in a vacuum, kind of helped us create what we were, which we had already had a lot of time growing up to do that. It's like, we are what we are. The music we make is what we make. The videos that we do is what it is. If somebody tells us they hate it, it's not going to change anything about what we do, right? Like, it's literally, if it makes, both he and I say like, yeah, this is good, then that's all that will ever matter. But I think there was like a big learning journey in like trying to figure out like, okay, we went from never sharing anything to we're going to learn the whole business of music and promotion and getting things out there, and a big learning of what does and doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm, so I think, what's important to us, I think, is making sure that it's worth people's time if they come to our social media or to our website or whatever, that there's things that will make them feel a certain way when they're there. But those change over time, right? Like, I think if you look at, like, we have a lot of different sketch comedy. We have some surreal things. And what we do 3 months ago that we think is interesting, like you said you saw some videos of him dancing. We probably will never do that, right? We probably won't. Like, that was what we were doing at that point of time, because
that was a phase, yeah.
At the time, it was good at the time.
But I
For,
mean,
it was
yeah.
good for you, but moments ago it was great for me because it's something that I enjoyed, you know?
Yeah, but it's like for us, like the art is, like you have to like serve the art, and the only thing that you ever have to do is say like, what are the things that we could do that can make this song or this thing the best thing that it could possibly do, right? So now,
Right.
as we put out this last song that came out before the one that's coming out tonight, "Love at First Sight," it's a much different, it's almost like funk. Pop or whatever inspired, and that just kind of came out as to what it was for what we wanted to talk about. And then the video is a much different upbeat thing, but then like this Mermaid song, we had no idea, like we were just screwing around, like
Right.
we were at a house with some folks a couple weeks ago, and we were like, let's surprise, like do like a, like, how children put on concerts for like the adults. We
Yep.
were like, let's
In the
just do a
living room.
surprise at a dinner with while people are eating dinner and videotape it. And we just thought it would be like we'd get a funny clip, but we ended up getting a whole video out of it, right? Never something that we ever thought would be a thing, but like even for these next songs that we're putting together, it's just like I don't think we know, because what interests us changes, but also we change, and we grow.
Right.
And as we learn new skills, we try different things. And I think it's always just like, what's the best thing to interpret this thing? And a lot of times we'll talk together and it's like, well, what do we want to do for this? And it's like, maybe just let it sit in the back of our mind that we want to do something for it. And then if something bubbles up to the surface, we'll follow that. And almost always an idea follows. So it's just kind of hard to say, but it's, the making of it is the fun part,
Yeah. It's not what I like, what I'm hearing from the both of you is you're driving the art for what interests you, not necessarily what interests the audience. Now hear me out on this, meaning you're not chasing likes. Yeah, I would assume, you're doing it for the art and the playing. If it's your play, your adult playtime, which is, well, I wish I had my child mind back. I sometimes do, but I need to go back to it because that's where I was most creative and most joyful in my life.
Well, I think like that you just said something, like somebody said that to me one time. They were like, it's cool to see that like older men can still like have fun. And it's like, well, cool. Because that's what it is to us. But you're talking about chasing likes. That's definitely not what it is. Like, as a matter of fact, like this next song and the last song contrasted to our first album is almost, I would call it like suicide, right? Because we're not actually doing anything that at all would cater to the people who maybe have just who would have arrived at us from that. And we, we're not doing it at all to make people leave us. It's just, I think what people are starting to see is our interests are really broad in what we like to create. And like while we created this album, that's that snapshot in time about this very specific thing. And now it's kind of creating more of a broad place where we can operate inside of. But yeah, it's absolutely not that. It doesn't, trust me, it doesn't help our Spotify algorithm, right? Because it doesn't help learn people and we're bringing different people in. But yeah, there's some videos like where it's like, there's some videos that we've posted on social where it's like, okay, 7 people, they dropped us today. And like, I think we have to be okay with like, well, we're doing this because this is what needs to come out of us. And like, we believe in it.
Well, that's pretty much the exact reason why we never pursued getting on a record label or anything. Is because we didn't want to be pigeonholed into like, you do, someone else saying, be like, you do this good, keep doing that. And it's like, we don't want to keep doing anything. We just want to keep doing what's fun and what makes us, excited to do it. Whenever it becomes feeling like where it's an obligation to we need to make a more, it's like, I listen to a lot of music, but where I always wondered about these bands where you're just like, this is a dark wave band. So now everything you do has to be dark wave. That would suck. Like,
well, I think about that with Korn. The band Korn had that
sure.
first album where he was just talking about like how mad he was at his family, and they got a following. People really connected with that. And then it was like, oh damn, now you got to keep doing that. You know what I mean? And it's like, how much is there to say? And so for like, no shit, like we have songs that we've created in our libraries that, dark wave, country, hip hop, rapping, like all of this stuff now. All of that may not necessarily fit into what we're doing, because we did try to build it around a core of like, well, we want to kind of tell this, broader story. But what it does allow us to do is look back at those libraries of music that we have, and it kind of helps us say like, in this part of this journey that we're going on, these songs seem to kind of help with that. But I don't think it's healthy if people who are true artists think about how to just get likes, unless listen, I don't have a problem with people doing that, by the way, because there are people that they just really want to hear Linkin Park sounding music. And there's this gentleman, Andrew Southworth, who is just a genius in music promotion, and he's really helpful for artists, and we've talked to him a little bit, and he experimented with a lot of different genres, and he found like, oh, this genre really connects with people the most, and he goes to town on that genre, and he does such a good job with it. And he's making a living and a business off of doing these things. And like, people love it. And I can't hate on that. But for us, where it's like, I don't know, like, I don't like some of the music that I listened to 2 years ago, and what art means to us, I don't think necessarily means our flame isn't necessarily fed by like other people saying this is awesome. It doesn't hurt. It really makes it feel much better to us, but it feels even better when they like the thing that you already liked. So we don't share anything until it's done and it goes out the door.
Yeah, I just gotta tell you a quick story. I was at a festival this past weekend, and I was walking with another artist, great pianist, really creative guy. Okay. And we were walking to see this. They had like 3 stages, and I said, oh, I'm going to go walk to this stage. And it was an Allman Brothers cover band, because it's the time of the tribute band, for many people. And same thing. Kudos to them. Play great stuff. But as we're walking, and he goes, it's so ironic. I go, what do you mean? He goes, that guy, because we could hear the music. He goes, he played the lead that Dickie Betts played.
Did he freeze for you?
Note for note. I said, what's the irony? The irony is the Allman Brothers were into being creative and improvisation, and they're being copied note for note. How sad is that? He lamented, where, he said, you got to take your original stuff and put it out there and not just be a copycat, without being, diminishing, what it took for that artist to be able to do that. But it was an interesting thought that I took home with me.
For some of those people that like really enjoy playing cover music, like there's some people where they don't feel like they're creative, they're like, I don't really like songs, but I love playing like a John Mayer song or something like that. And it's like, well, that's what drives them. It's interesting just to see like the different layers of that. Your story reminds me of something I just heard. I think the guy from Queens of the Stone Age was saying Lynyrd Skynyrd tours, but there's 0 members of the original Lynyrd Skynyrd in the band. Right? So when you want to talk about a cover band, they're literally a cover band that still is the band, I believe. Like I think, one of our best friends is a karaoke DJ. Okay. And this guy has more fun than just about anybody else. He goes out and he helps people like sing these cover songs. And I thought about that quite a bit, whereas like his art form is really helping people, get over their nerves and get on stage. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. He's coaching them up, but he's like creating culture at these bars that he works, and he makes good money at it. And it's like, it's just funny how art can look different to different people. I have people tell me, I'm not creative, and they're wearing makeup. And I'm like, well, you spent 30 minutes, today in the bathroom putting that makeup on. That's art. That looks like art to me, or like somebody's like, I'm not creative. Well, do you make anything? Yeah, I knit this blanket. And it's like, what? Like sometimes I don't think necessarily people realize that they're doing something that's
Well, I think
creative, and all of us
there's
are wearing the outfit that you put on every day. That's creativity, you know?
I think that
Agreed.
there's a wall between the people that there are like creative people. I know one very in particular, but they don't believe that it's worth showing to anyone. You know what I
Not
mean?
worth
Like
it, right?
I do this for my own thing and maybe give it to someone or whatever, but it's not really for the world to see.
Yeah.
So
Hey guys, tell me about the third song that you brought to the table, Love at First Sight, how that came about. And I really want our audience to have a listen to it.
Yeah, I can explain that, but at first I want Charles to explain one thing, which is the blips that he makes, because it started with a blip.
yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then, yeah, so it's a thing.
It's a thing.
So
Okay.
it's something that we've called blips. So every time that I sit down to create something or write any music, just to get into the mood, I have to make something that's never been done before. And it's usually
Okay.
something really cheesy. I don't have any intention whatsoever. I'll go some easy route. I'll even have like some synthesizer patch that has a beat already in it, or where just everything's just kind of pre-programmed, or just something where I can just mess around and have fun. And sometimes good things come out of that, and they're never more than like a minute long, and I'll just throw them in the pile, you know. So I've got 300 blips, and most of them can be tossed out, but then some of them are like, there's something in there. So I sent Dan a blip that was, I think, a pretty long one, like maybe even 2 minutes long, and then he took literally like the first 5 seconds of it and like stopped it and was like, I hear something with this, I'm going to use this, before he even heard any of the notes that I put in it. It was just a beat
Okay.
with some effects on it or whatever. And then he made this like dance music song with it.
Yeah, he sent
Nice.
me this blip like through like Facebook Messenger, and I was just sitting on the couch, and immediately, so like in the beginning of that song, it starts with a drum beat, and then this din, 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 that's all it was, and I was just like, immediately I heard the vocal melody, and I had to go back and to like the demo of this when I was like cleaning off space on my computer recently, and it was like, yeah, started out with just the vocal melody on top of that, and then like the bass line, which kind of drives the whole song, like went in after that. And then it was just like, all right, we need some bridge, and then kind of added that to it. But it was just like these blips that he makes are usually what we'll put behind like the
Videos.
videos, like the social
Okay.
media videos, if he's dancing or if we're doing something, because it's cool, because it's like kind of our bank of content that we can use for like films and stuff. But it was like a really interesting thing that happened with that song, because it was like, we're writing a love album, right? And we had a lot of these songs picked out, and I was like, man, there's this one topic that I wanted to cover, and I think this song sounds like that, even though it doesn't sound like anything that we would do or whatever. And it's like, you know what, like, let's, like, this should be the next thing that goes out, because we think it's going to break into a little bit more of some of the other things that are going to happen that have been put out. But the fun part, I think, from there is like the song, we thought it was good. We were like laughing about it after it was put together in just like a couple of days, right? It was like really, really quick that the whole thing kind of happened. But then it was like, all right, this whole video idea came. And
Right from that.
yeah. By the way, the blip, I went back and listened to it. It sounds kind of like the safety dance, but then like what was like, do you remember that song, The Safety
Sure.
Dance?
Yep.
Yeah.
We can dance if we want to.
Yeah, that's exactly, you sound just like the guy. But so it was stripped down and put into that, but then as we were doing the music video, that's one idea that kind of continued to grow too, right? And there's a music video with a friend of ours where she's kind of dressed up as a lot of different people, which is really inspired by the
Was that the gal
videos?
The gal with the red hair?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
Robert Palmer videos, it's like,
Sure.
let's get her to record these different instruments. The fun thing is, like, it was like, you're only going to hear the bass drum and snare. And then she's like, all right, tell me what the sound sounds like. And it's like, no.
That's the song.
Just go up here and just do whatever. Don't worry about anything. And then we wanted to kind of match that up afterwards. But then it kind of kept evolving. And we're like, all right, we know Robert Palmer does it. Like, so when Charles came out here, we did some other things. We spent a little bit of time with a friend of ours in Florida. But then the idea, a much bigger idea, kind of unfolded into the video for that song, which kind of takes a look at, it's like three different there's three different things kind of going on when it comes to like looking at relationships. But the fun part about that song is the bridge. One thing that we do is we do a lot of connecting different parts, whether they're musical elements or singing elements or story components, and just putting them in different songs, right? Because we're like, well, if this part right here is about this and it fits in this other song on this different album, it's our song, why wouldn't we do that? I'm kind of surprised artists don't do that more, right? Just kind of like in a movie, you see flashbacks happen and it's like, oh yeah, that, and it kind of adds another emotional layer, and we do that a lot. And so the bridge of that song actually combines three other songs off of our last album, right? And it kind of takes a different view of relationships. So I don't know. It was a fun thing to do.
All right. Let's listen to Love at First Sight. We'll be right back after the song, everybody. Check this out. So we are back. Hey, Dan, I understand you have some props. Well, first I'm going to show my prop. Okay, because you're from North Carolina, and I got crabs from Dirty Dicks. All right, now I have to check explicit off when I put up the podcast because I said dick.
Well,
the name of
what's funny is when you're driving there, if you're depending on where you're going, I mean, like the north or south end of the island, if you're driving to the island where the Wright brothers flew the plane and all that, that's where Dirty Dicks is, and you see billboards for probably 2 hours before you get there. Just every 2 miles. I got my crabs from Dirty Dicks. All the different kind of pun kind of jokes about Dirty Dicks Crab Shack.
Yeah.
And it's really overpriced, in my opinion.
Yeah, tourist trap. That and south of the border. Right.
Yeah. Okay, so so there's several props that we've been using a lot in different videos that we won't go into too much, but this spends a lot of time in videos, right? This is a very important, very hard to get one of these like actual old phones, by the way. But one of here's a very special, one of a kind pair of shoes.
Ooh, nice.
You'll see a little bit more of these later for any of the people who follow our social media. They actually
you have that emblem, right? Is that's your logo?
We have our nice little silver shoe. Yeah, so these actually serve a purpose in a video that we'll look at some other point. And then people really seemed to like these things from our video.
Puppets.
Yeah, we have a lot of puppets that were made by Renee. This is just another idea that kind of came on how to better
from your therapist
the chorus of the bridge of that song. So yeah, like they just happen to be sitting on this table as a reminder, along with like a couple of other wigs. We got some mustaches.
Oh, right. You were like Guys on the Prairie, I think, at one point, right? With the
Oh yeah, you saw that? Yeah.
Hey, I did my homework.
Yeah,
that's a
fun one.
We actually did have we had a video also about how do we work through our problems with each other. And Dan had not a puppet like that, but a marionette puppet. And I'm getting upset and trying to talk to him, and he's like, "No, talk to the puppet." And,
The puppet therapy.
I think I had a puppet like that, and it just ends in disaster. But ideas like that and videos like that are really fun to just come up with at the time and just make, and then put out. And it's just having a good time, you know.
I tell you, it's this is probably one of the most fun interviews I think I've had. And where else are you going to get puppets, music videos, music that you can't pin down to any particular genre, and two really nice guys, creative guys. Dan, Charles, I really want to thank you for spending time with me. It's been a real blessing, and I really look forward someday in the future. If you're in New York, you better look me up.
Yes.
And I'll be watching you on social media, and so glad to have you here on the Long Island Sound. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really good questions. We like what you do, and just feel super happy that you would have us.
Yeah.
All right.
Really
Rose.
great to be here. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dan. All right. We'll see you guys. Take care.
Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment, and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace.